Hello! Today I'm going to be giving you the full tour of NBNT on NBNT.com. This is for anyone who wants a more in-depth view of the base. If they want to rebuild a farm or build and need to see it from a better angle, this is the video for you. So I'm just gonna get started here by clicking on my server list and joining 99T. We should join the queue world and then the actual server. Alright, so this is everyone on right now, and I also keep my chat very small because there's usually nothing of value in there, just advertisements and player deaths. So, before we start, everything you see in this video is genuinely on the server. There's no fancy editing or trickery, and for a little context, this base was built by two people, myself and a player named Cloven. Before NBNT, I had built a base called Anarchia with Cloven and a few other players, and completed it on January 18th, 2020. After completing Anarchia, I made a bunch of videos showing off the base and a final video where I quit 99T and Minecraft entirely. I was true to that, but after a month after that video was posted, COVID-19 was just starting to take effect, and businesses were closing up and everyone was freaking out. I always found myself coming back to my own room bored with nothing to do, so I messaged Cloven one day saying, what if Anarchia wasn't the end, and he was very interested. We planned a Discord for NBNT and put all our ideas together before arriving here on March 17th. As you can see here, about 50 days after completing Anarchia, and after my account had been logged into by the exploit in Mojang Security, I was unsure if it would happen again if I started playing again on my main account, and thought it would be safer to play on a random alt account than a name widely thrown across the server, especially after unveiling a build like Anarchia. So the alt account idea was also a good way of appearing that the Radioz account had still quit for good and would give a better surprise when unveiling NBNT. Alright, so that's enough history about the base. I'm going to begin the tour. So we start here at the village, the first place Cloven and I arrived when we planned the base location. And we set up in this house. We had a few shulkers from our inventory from Anarchia. It was nothing special, mostly armor, tools, and food. At the entire time for NBNT, we had no dupe access. Only the items we brought. So every build at the base was with items we had to collect from various areas. And we also had a nether quarry, so I'm just going to show this off now so we don't have to go back into the nether. Alright. I apologize if the server begins to lag. There is a lot of players on and I'm playing at a high peak point of the day, so if it starts to lag I'll move over to a world download, but I'll let you guys know if that happens. So, coming to the nether quarry here, there were two major netherrack builds at the base, so we had to collect a lot of netherrack. I think this was, these are all extra blocks, I think this was 200,000 netherrack, I'm fairly sure, or 220,000, I can't remember. But yep, this is our nether. So yeah, nothing too special, just a big hole in the ground. But yeah. If we head back up, we can go to the overworld. Alright, here we go. And there's so many builds at this base. There's actually 123 builds. At Anarchia there was only 90, so I don't know how I'm going to really go about showing off the base. I'm just going to start with the village, since that was the first place we started, and then maybe the storage room. So we first got here, we dropped some spare items we picked up. These are our initial beds. I didn't really have anything in my ender chest because it was an alt account. This was our little setup area, our shulkers we put here. This was a storage room that Cloven built, and it's always a joke that we never used it. It was only these 4 chests that we ever used. And we also had a map wall, but I was afraid that somehow someone could map exploit one of the maps, so I quickly got rid of any map that was at the base. Alright, and as you can see, the village has a theme. We removed all the cobblestone from the houses and replaced it with stone brick. We also did some refurbishing with the roofs because we thought they were pretty ugly. So looking around, this is the village. So yeah, there's some builds here that we even recreated, so we took a schem of that and rebuilt it over here. We upgraded all the farms. We also have a villager farm, so we had to take a few of them out of here and bring them to the farm. Yep. I actually filled this place with iron golems, like all over the place, but they somehow all migrated to this one area. I have no idea how that happened, but it did. Right here, this pillar in the ground was an original idea to make a build called the Pinnacle, but we moved that over to a build right there. You can't see it in render distance, but it's like right there. But this is the original idea, and then we just moved it over there. The original name of the base was going to be called Pinnacality, but oh yeah, there it is. But we changed it to NBNT because it sounded better. So, showing off the village, we also got some skeleton horses. After AFKing this mob farm, that's what that is, lightning would strike all over the village, like from AFKing overnight, so all these trees had to, yeah, you can see there's a tree here. All the trees and houses kept getting burnt down, so a bunch of these had to be regrown. And I think that's it for the village. Okay. Also, I am using a client right now, but the only module I'm going to be really using is something called ice speed and timer. So it's just moving around the base faster. And that's usually what we only really use when we're working on this base. As you can also see, we got waypoints all around the base here. So yeah, I'm going to turn those off just so they're not in your face all the time while we're going around the base. Alright, there you go. All the waypoints are gone, and I guess we'll get started. So, we first showed up at the village, and then one of the first builds, I think it was the first build after the village, was the storage room here. And you might notice some similarities from Anarchia, because the original Anarchia storage room was really well done. It had a little improvements that were put into this build, but overall it's pretty similar, so I'm just going to load it all in here. And there we go. So, if you remember from the Anarchia full tour, you would know that we had excess ground items. It was called GH2 items at Anarchia. We had mob drops, random blocks, colored blocks, wooden items, vegetation, and miscellaneous. So if we just have a look here, you'll notice we got all the different types of blocks from the ground over here. Got sand, gravel, you know, all the usual stuff. This wall was actually used to empty shelters because we didn't have one of these at Anarchia, and this was a really good addition. And over here we also have the mob drops. We have all the, I forget what I called it. It was the, oh yeah, random blocks. So just like hoppers, chest, beacons, redstone, obsidian, sponge, all that type of stuff. All the colored blocks. We also have the dye, regular glass, hardened clay. We had all the wood, and vegetation over here. Right here, this is the item drop-off. So whenever you finish the project, you would have all these shulkers filled with random blocks from either digging out the ground or just extra blocks from the village you didn't place. You put these shulkers on the wall, and then after you have a good collection, you take a good hour and sort them all into the storage room. Over here, if you had anything that wasn't a shulker, you would drop it into these chests over here. And yes, this was the quick item drop-off. We also have an enchantment table, get some books. If you had a really big project, you would use these chests to store items, and then you would put them in the shelters. Over here is anything that's like armor, tools, or like gapples, you know, XP, stuff like that. So yeah. So this is what I'm talking about. When we brought items from Anarchia, this is all we really had, was like gear and stuff. But gear doesn't really matter when you're a base builder, because you're not really PvPing all the time. You're just placing blocks and breaking blocks, and that's all you're really doing. So most of the stuff we brought wasn't even used. I think we had all these gapples, and yeah, we only used that many, and that was to heal ourselves. So yeah, oh, let me grab that. So the server is a bit laggy right now. It's not too bad, since I'm just showcasing it. So I think we'll be okay. So that's the first layer, showing you the exterior here. This is the storage room. There's also these little branches if we ever had to quickly exit one direction of the base, because there's only 2 main exits. But if you had to go this way, because this way was a pretty common way to go, or down here, there's also one more over here. You have to go that way. But it is 3 layers, as you can see. The ground layer is the main one. We usually don't go up to the second, but this is bulk storage for like wheat, carrot, potato, beetroot, you know, their seeds. Any farmable items that would get massively produced would go here. There was also a sorting system left and then up, and then once that row was filled, you come down to this one and up, and then this one and up, and that was for like that was the whole storage room system, basically. So yeah, plenty of chests. And the third layer here, we had items that you would get large quantities, but they weren't farmable, like netherrack, stone brick, diorite, basically any items from the ground. So yeah, this layer was mostly used for dirt and grass. And you could also see from the back whenever there was items in a chest. Yeah, you can see mostly it was just grass and dirt. All the other ones are pretty much unlit. There's only one for most of them. So yep, that's pretty much it for the storage room. This is the most visited place at the base, of course, because you're always coming and going from here, picking up items, heading out. And yeah, we also have some decoration, just trees going around. But now I'm going to start showing off the actual base. So, we came from that way. I think we'll go this way. So, the goal of this base was primarily to outdo Anarchia, because it was one of the largest bases on Anarchy. And if we could beat that base by a lot, then this base would probably hold a good chance of being the largest base on Anarchy entirely. Especially only being built by 2 people. Most mega bases are built by like 40 people, 30, 40 people, and I thought that's just insane. So it was a lot easier to keep everything controlled with just us 2 here. Another object was every farm at Anarchia we tried to make 4 times bigger, but as you can see here, if you remember the netherwort farm from Anarchia, then you would know that this is not 4 times bigger, this is about 64 times bigger. And yeah, it has multiple layers. You can also see the lanterns we got from the Guardian farm. This is one of the biggest non-auto farms we have here. And a lot of people ask why I didn't make this auto. Some people don't know, you can actually, I don't think I have Fortune. No, I don't. You can use Fortune on Netherwort, and instead of getting the regular drops, you'll get like 2-3 times that amount. So just running like this much here, you'll get like an inventory of Netherwort. I think. Yeah, there's some in here. So yeah, just doing this, you'll get, I think that was what, 4? Yeah, that was 4. So if you just ran around this, you get a lot really fast, as you can imagine. So that is the netherwort farm. And I'm going to try to go around circles in the storage room so I can keep an idea of what I've shown off. This is our little wheat field here. Little inspiration from the Valley of Wheat, of course. And yep, this was also a really awkward area between the storage room and the nether wart farm and other builds around it, so it was a good way to fill up the space here. So yep, just going here, you can see the wheat farm goes all the way around. And right here we have a concrete duper or sand converter, something along those lines. But it's the entire setup you need. You would put 4, so for example you could put 4 white concrete right here, and then once you put one here, this block would get raised, and then the white concrete would be turned into orange concrete. I don't know if we have any in here right now. No, we don't. But yep, we just had a little storage here. Storage room was right there, so you didn't really need all this, but it was just if you needed to quickly replace those 4 in there. And then if you had concrete powder, you could come here, place it in the water, turn it into actual concrete for a build. I don't know if we have any here. No. And then yeah, if you had a lot, you could fill up these chests, and these are just like shulker chests. You put your extra items in. And yeah, that's the concrete converter. So this is probably the smallest build at the base. I sometimes don't even consider it a build, but when I was making it, it was like the 20th build at the base, so I considered it one then. But yeah, that's just a stone heart, nothing too special. Yeah, you can see we're still in the wheat field here. And then if I can load in this build. So right here we have a build, and it's called the Pinnacle. It was one of the earlier builds at the base, and I didn't know how big it was going to get, so I started it right here. It was a decent ways away from the storage room at the time, and what I originally hadn't planned, it wasn't going to reach this close. So yeah, that's why it's kind of almost touching the storage room. But if I can go out here and just show you with free cam, it's just a lot of pillars going up to the sky. And the original idea was to get the owner to place a piece of bedrock up here. And I've yet to ask. If he does, I'll try to include a clip of that happening. But right now it's only a sea lantern. And yeah, it was this little idea I had planned, and it was just it was just random. It was a random build. But yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. You'll also see around the base there's plenty of signs just randomly placed. There's also some random builds, like stuff like this. This isn't considered a build, but like just for added effect, stuff in the road, all around the base, stuff like that is thrown about. This isn't a build either. Well, it's a build, but it's not considered an actual part of the total build count. And this was the original Team Withers logo, like in-game logo, from 2016, and it was really short-lived, and I actually only had one picture from my old hard drive of this, because I almost forgot what it looked like. But yeah, it was nice to bring it back to this base after 4 years. And if we kept going around, that was the village. There's also some gravel roads around the base here. So, oh yeah, there's also storage room, or not storage, there's AFK rooms all around the base. So we have our own mushroom biome right here, or mushroom biome, whatever you want to call it. And yep, this was very early on when we didn't have anything even coming off to this direction of the base. So I removed all the grass and I replaced it with mycelium. Well, I replaced it with dirt, and then I placed mycelium throughout, and the mycelium grew. I'm just trying to load it all in here. So yep, it's fairly decently sized, and it also covered this mountain here, which is kind of hard to work with. And yep, just showing you around. You'll also see stuff like this, just floating trees. There's a lot of builds like that, just intricate throughout the base, and I'll go through all of those at the very end, because like you'll be seeing them throughout the whole base tour. And yep, that's the mushroom biome right there. Oh yeah, here's the road into the storage room. And heading back this way. Oh, I guess I'll show you this because it's in the mushroom biome. This is the Skyway, if you remember from Anarchia, this was really well done at Anarchia, so I thought may as well bring it back. But this time, you know, do it a little bit better. That's the whole idea here. So yep, this takes you to all the biomes where you can get blocks. This is where you got pod soul, packed ice. There was a desert there to get sand, mesa to get your clay, mushroom biome. This is where we got animals and my first mycelium, and jungle for cocoa beans and logs, of course. So coming down from the skyway, you'll also see that there's plenty of this road design around the base. So when we were coming up with methods to get around the base, just like Anarchia, using roads was obviously the fastest way to get around. We couldn't use boats and ice at the time because you couldn't place a boat on the ground and get into it. So right here you would place packed ice, and before we found out about the ice speed module, we only used the packed ice for like sprinting and jumping because running on ice makes you move faster. So the ice speed was a really big bonus after we discovered that. And all of the roads are lit up, so if you rendered this base at nighttime, you would see all the roads are glowing pretty much. And right here, every intersection has, well, most of the intersections has this design here, and this actually goes back to a design I used a long time ago, even though it's just like a circle with like ends coming out of it. It was a old design I used on different Anarchy servers. So going around, we have right here, these are the NBNT stones. So at Anarchia we had stones called the NBT stones, and they were enlarged versions of the stones at a base called NBT, not to be confused with this base because they are very similar. And they were made out of diorite, granite, and andesite, and just here we made them out of emerald, diamond, and iron. Over here we have the snow farm. So yep, we have 16 snow cells here. Like when the server's lagging, you can't just constantly break. So yeah, you would turn on like Nuka right here and you would just run really fast back and forth, and then that's how you would get your snow. So yep, that's the snow farm. And then heading around here, alright, we have the base logo right here. Alright. So yep, that's the base logo. And then right here we have, there was never a really good name for this area. It was always just called the ballerina area, considering the big build in the center. And if I can just load it all in here. The render distance is very low on the server, so I have to run around, load everything in before I can really show you guys. So if you play Anarchy regularly, you would have seen this build before. It's a fairly popular schematic around Anarchy servers, and I thought it deserved a place at this base because of how widespread it is. And yeah, we just have cocoa beans, pumpkins, sugarcane, and these armor stands with armor. So all the armor came from this skeleton farm right here. If I can show you. Yep, so we had a skeleton farm. This was to get bones, just to majorly get bones because we didn't really need arrows or the gear. The gear we just used for this area here. So yep, that's the ballerina area. And heading this way, we have, this was our temporary wheat, carrot, beetroot, potato farm. And right next to it we have a giant Rubik's Cube, which almost looks like it isn't loading in. Well, okay, yeah, it wasn't okay. So yeah, we have a Rubik's Cube, and next to it we have a sugarcane farm. So, oh man, I'm gonna have to run through this really fast. Alright, so loading it in. This was a big project and I didn't realize it at the time. So there's about 100,000 dirt blocks, and for every dirt block you have to place a sugar cane block on top of it. So that was another 100,000 or so sugar cane. And yep, this was to cover up a really bad terrain area under here. We had a river just going zigzag through the base, so this covered up a really good part of that. And yep, whenever you needed paper or just sugarcane for another build, you'd come here, run really quick, and it looked like you didn't even take anything from the farm. So yep, that's the sugarcane farm. And I kind of lost my direction here. Oh, okay, so we're here. I'll show off the furnace here. So this is the furnace build. Whenever you had to smelt something, or anything in fact, this was a really good design. I think this was the third build at the base. This was to turn on these carpet dupers, and if you don't know, carpet can be used to smelt items, so we had infinite fuel here. And if you needed to smelt items in bulk, you would just place all your shulkers down here, or you could place them on top of these hoppers at the time. There weren't chests before. And you could just AFK overnight or for a few hours, and then everything would be smelted. All the furnaces would always be full with carpet. And yeah, it was just a really good design. Underneath, it's all lit up. That's the system here to turn them on. Yep. And there's also some jungle trees around, just some nature look around. There's also a fairly sized dome, and as we were starting construction on the base, we wanted this black glass kind of design going around everywhere, because at Anarchia we used light blue glass and magenta glass for a lot of the builds, but black glass was kind of prestigious in our eyes at the time. So yeah, you'll see a lot of black glass, since getting it is one of the hardest colors in the game, especially on Anarchy when squids don't like to spawn. Right here we have the message board. So yeah, whenever my friend Cloven came on, his account was Parable, my account was Stormer, and yep, made the message board August 14th. And yeah, just a bunch of signs. There was instructions on how to write signs in order. Of course, you know, there was just some random signs put about, but yeah, it doesn't really matter, just a message board. And yep, coming over here, we have one of my favorite builds at the base. This is the progress bar. So, I'm really glad I started this when I did. It was at the very start of the base. So anytime a build was finished, well, at the beginning of the progress bar, we also noted down when we started a build, such as, that was the quarry, the sugarcane farm, the storage room. There's also this thing called the boundaries. So the original idea for the base was we were going to fill in this almost 4,000 by 3,000 barrier with just builds and see how it looked on a render. We didn't get that close, obviously, because that's insane. But we set up the boundaries of how far we were allowed to build out. The road formula. So this road is actually the best road design you can have for 1.12. There's no better road design I could come up with. This was the one right here. Yep, so you see we began the furnace, that was that build. We also began the gold farm, which I have yet to show you. So yeah, every layer has the month, that was the year, and before these ladders we had just this spiral system, but after a few months it became kind of tedious going in circles, so I added in the ladder system. So every layer here, that's 1 month. So if you count, that's, I think, what, 8 to 9 months or something. Yep, if we just go through it. After a while, we discontinued the began signs and only wrote down the builds we finished. So yeah, we have April, and then May was a big month. We were working on the main iron farm. If you ever looked at the render, you'll see why. And then June, halfway through, we finally finished. And then July, we got a lot done. August we got a lot done, and then September was one of our biggest months. We got all these builds done, went all the way around right to here. October, November, and then yeah, we got the roof. So yep, that's the progress bar. Very unique. I've never seen that at like a different base, noting down all the updates of the base for such a long period of time at least. Right here we have the dupable flowers, so if you bring in bone meal, you could right click these flowers and they would multiply it basically. So you right click, they drop a flower, and then you can turn it into dye, and then use that dye on glass or blocks. Right here we have the Canada Day Monument. So right here on July 1st, this was just a little monument for Canada Day. There was also one planned for July 4th, and I left that up to Cloven because he's American and I'm Canadian. I left that one up to him, and it never got done, sadly. There is an American flag and Canadian flag though, so yeah. Over here we have, so there's 3 mob farms at the base. Mob farm A, mob farm B, mob farm C. This is the best one at the base. So, the story behind mob farms on NBNT is actually pretty difficult. The owner has this plugin which freezes certain chunks at times, so as you can see this is a chunk. And if this chunk has too much activity and a low TPS, what I've noticed is, say this chunk had a lot of activity more than the others, this one would get frozen. So like if there was a villager standing here and this chunk got selected, if you tried to punch it or like move it or anything, it wouldn't work. And if there was, say, a skeleton up there, it wouldn't move at all. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea. This farm was designed with that in mind. So there's 4 chunks long and 3 chunks wide, so that's 12 total chunks, and each design is built like this. A player named Ormonger really helped with this design. So he used to play on 2v2t at this place called Kinograd, and while I was researching mob farms, I just couldn't find a design that got me what I wanted, but also worked with the server's TPS and their plugin. But he had this similar design with the tripwires and pistons and waters, so the second a mob spawns, it's going to get pushed into the collection system. But his wasn't built with the chunks, and I had the idea, okay, let's put it with the chunks, and then hopefully if one of the chunks get frozen, at least maybe one of them here will still work. And this farm actually worked really well with that. So yep, one of the bigger projects at the base. I don't know what's going on here. That actually has never happened. Oh, I'm missing redstone, okay. So yeah, that's mob farm B. This glass roof was to protect the road because it was getting lightning striked like crazy. Over here we have, hold on, if I fly up, this is way at the top of the sky. So this was near the end when you could finally sit in boats that weren't in water. You could place a boat here, and then because boats on ice have super speed, if you wanted to get across the base pretty quickly, every direction here goes 600 or 700 blocks. You could quickly zoom to the other side of the base and then get out and go down. So yeah, it was obviously you couldn't get out halfway or else you would have trouble. But yeah, that's the ice road. Coming up here, this is Mob Farm A. This was the original design I had at NBNT. So yeah, just loading it all in here. So when planning this farm, I was researching the most efficient mob farm designs, and this sort of diamond shape was the favored mob farm style across the SciCraft YouTubers and so. So I set up this whole farm without 9B's restrictions in mind, and this also doesn't work anymore. You could go up here, you'd flick that lever, and originally this would turn on the system. It would let you put these on a timer, so every minute or so any mobs here would get flushed away. But I found the single chunk here that had the clock was getting frozen, so I made a clock for every chunk. But that stopped working, so that's why I made a mob farm too. So yeah, it also had a whole filtering system that I never really got to use because, again, the server's chunk freezing issue was just breaking item sorters. So yeah, that's mob farm A, and we'll come up on C in a while. Right here, this is a very old build, and unless you have a really good eye, I don't think you would know where this is from. So, at a base called Athens, I think it was my third base I built on the server. It was with me, my friend Ab, and one other base member named Celestial Pandas. I was really bored one day and I built this type of structure there, and a few days later the base was griefed. And I had this random idea to fill in this area here with this build. This one had some refurbishing from the one you can see on screen now. So yeah, it's also our meeting area and where we decided that it was time to end the progress on NBNT a few days ago. So yep, that's the meeting area. There's also an AFK room right here. Going around a bit more, we come up on the mushroom farm. So we tried to make every farm possible on like Anarchy servers at this base. So right here we have a farm that actually worked really well. It was a mushroom farm. This had many designs going for it, but I found a design by Il Mango, which was really well done. Oh yeah, this is what I mean by the chunk freezing. You see items just don't break, or nothing happens in the chunk anymore. So yeah, whenever a mushroom would spawn, the pods will get pushed back and the mushroom would break, and then there's a minecart going around somewhere here. I actually can't find it right now. Oh yeah, right there. It goes around, picks up all the mushrooms, puts them in the chest, and yeah, that's how that works. Right here we have the mushroom block farm. So if you needed little mushrooms, you would go there, or if you needed the actual blocks, you'd come here with Silk Touch and then just break the mushroom blocks. We had this long build here. Yeah, it goes all around. You'd bone meal your mushrooms. This was the perfect height for the mushrooms for both sides, and the perfect distance apart. So yep, that's the mushroom block farm. And going this way, we have the melon farm. I still have to load that in, so I'll just go to this one first. This is a reconstruction of the Radioz account, and this was actually built about halfway through the base, and I was worried that if someone discovered the base while I was still working on it, they would find this build. They would catch on that I was playing on an alt, but gladly that didn't happen, so yeah. Over here we have the vine farm. So these don't go all the way to sky limit, about halfway to it though. So yeah, whenever you needed vines, you would just come here with your shears, break some vines, and yeah, pretty simple thing. We will get to that one in a bit, but right here we have the all block museum. This might look familiar. It's similar to the one at Anarchia. I did have shulkers here, but we actually needed the shulkers for a project, so I took them away. But yeah, I can always put those back. We have the second layer here. These are all the wood supplies. So we have stuff like boats, we have the saplings, the leaves, we have flowers. I actually don't know what was supposed to be there. Huh. Yep. We did not have coarse fruit, so that is one of the farms at this base that we couldn't build. And I think that was the only farm really we couldn't build here, was a coarse fruit farm. But yeah, we have stuff like minecarts, all the armor stands, pressure plates, all the blocks, all the crops. Going up to the third layer, we have all the random blocks. So yeah, right here, that's string. You got the two types of daylight sensors. You got the redstone lamp. Over here, I wasn't on my Radioz account, so I didn't have any of this special stuff at the time, like player heads or wither heads. So I didn't have all of these like really hard to get items on a random account. And yeah, stuff like purple pillars, purple blocks, stuff from a purple farm you couldn't get as well. So yeah, there's just some missing items. So yep, that's the all block museum. It actually fit really well in between the road here and the melon farm. As you can see, it's one block apart from like every side here, so that was really, really lucky. Right here we have a melon farm, if I can load it all in. So yep, this is just a bulk melon farm. Pretty simple, just a bunch of crops. Whenever you needed a lot of melons, you'd come here with Silk Touch or Fortune, get your melons, and then you're good to go. And above the melon farm, this area was actually, because of the melon farm, it became really flat, so something had to go above it, and this skull here was really a good addition for that. So yeah, pretty simple thing, just a skull, but yeah. Alright, and leaving the melon farm, here we go. We come up to this. So this is the Canadian flag, one of two of the flags at the entire base. And behind it we have the pumpkin farm. So, like the melon farm, it's pretty much the same idea, just pumpkins instead of melons. So if you ever needed bulk pumpkins, which we ended up having to actually use a lot because we ran out of glowstone and had to start using sea lanterns, but then we ran out of sea lanterns, so we had to start using jack-o'-lanterns to light up the roads. So yeah, this became very nice for that. So yep, and like the skull over the melon farm, we have a dragon over the pumpkin farm. I can't really load in the tail here, but yeah, you get the idea. Heading this way. So yep, this is where we started on that second round, so we're going over here. So, right here we have just a little rocket ship taking up this awkward area in between here. So, yep, I think, oh, the dragon actually touches it. I didn't know that before. So yeah, little rocket ship. Over here we have a snow biome, and I'm just gonna load it all in. So yep, we have a snow biome here and a man digging himself out of stone, and I always really like this area. Because this build, once you were walking away from the storage room, this build would load in pretty quickly, and it was always a great angle right there. Alright. Coming over here, we have the villager farm. And sorry guys if I'm going too quick, I don't want this video to be like 3 hours long, even though it might even get that long. So yeah, I'm trying to go pretty quick. This is the villager farm. Pretty simple design. I know I had trouble finding a working design on Anarchy servers, so if anyone wants to see how it works, there's just a water stream, signs underneath it, water flows left and then back, and then any villagers born get pushed out here. There's actually a glass block inside the villagers, and there's trapdoors above them, so you can throw food inside, it lands on the block, the villagers grab them, and yeah. These are the doors, that's the villager to help these villagers breathe. And yeah, whenever a baby is born, they fall into one of the corners, or edges here, and they eventually all end up in a corner. So yeah. This is the villager farm, carrots around to feed the villagers, and a little AFK room right there. So that's the villager farm. Heading over here, this is one of the larger builds of the base. Let me just run around here, loading it in. So yep, I just loaded it all in. And this is one of my more favorite builds at the base, and I think it is actually Cloven's favorite build at the base. So, it has this huge dome on top, a great viewing area right here, and a lot of walk around area, so if you just wanted to look around the base from inside the gold farm, you could. Oh, you can also see the rainbow chickens there. So walking around. You can also see inside the portals here if you wanted to see the pigmen falling. The pigmen can't actually get out from here. I always like this open area right here, just looking right over the edge. And yep. So there's 3 layers. I showed you the middle layer here, just going around the viewing area. Going up to the top, you can actually look down into the gold farm. Sorry if I get some lag, all the portals are lagging me. These are the collection chests. I think I emptied everything a while ago. Yep. So, the pigmen would fall into the water stream by either randomly walking off, or one of the snowmen here would hit one of these. So one of these snowmen would sometimes shoot a pigman coming here, and that was pretty often. And the pigmen would all get angry at the snowman, run towards the center, fall into the water. And before the bottom layer there was created, it used to go up. So it would go up here and all the way to the top. They'd fall into this little area. They'd take a bunch of fall damage, and they'd basically be one-hit kill. And then all their items would get filtered into the storage room here. And again, because of the chunk freezing issue, a lot of this stuff didn't work, and the redstone would freeze up, and the hoppers wouldn't filter, and the filters would just break randomly. So yeah, I had to kind of stop using this system and start using the bottom layer instead, which actually became a lot more efficient in the end run. So yeah, right here on the top layer, any swords and stuff would get put into here. They'd be put on this little viewing area, and then they would despawn over time. You could also AFK in this water pool, but I found out later on that if you AFK in a water stream, you actually die from hunger, so I stopped using that right away. Down here, if you wanted to anger the pigmen yourself, you could stand on this edge and punch them, and they would all run to you. And then you could run around the circle here, and they would all try to get you. But going down to the bottom layer, right down here, there's this little walkway all the way down here. This is where we actually fixed a bunch of pickaxes and shovels. They were always, all the shovels and pickaxes were always being depleted really quickly, because we didn't have an infinite supply like a lot of people on the server. So yeah, you would come here, they would fall a pretty good distance, and they would mostly be 1 or 2 hit kill. And you would fix a pick or shovel really quickly, put it back in the shulker, switch it out, repeat. But I'm going to demonstrate the server chunk freezing right here. So right now all these pigmen are frozen. You can see they're not moving. So this is for almost every entity. Well, this is for every entity if it were in this chunk. So if you try to like hit it, you can hit it once, things will die, the items will drop, but there's no XP, as you can see. I stayed level 24. So if I hit them again, they all die, and they all die. So unless I waited out for this chunk to unfreeze and the TPS to get back, sorry about that. If I waited out for this chunk to unfreeze, then the XP will drop. But if I disconnect, then the XP will just vanish from the server, which sucks. So sometimes I'd be standing here for like 20-30 minutes just waiting for that XP orb to appear out of nowhere, and then do it all over again just to fix 1 or 2 shovels. And yep, if you wanted to load in the far side of the farm here, you would just run down these tunnels. There was actually zombies spawning out here, so I had to block these off. So yeah, that's just that. This is where all the items would go. It was very quick, it was very quick sorting. So you come down here, you drop all the swords, take everything you want. I stopped grabbing rotten flesh after a while because I didn't need it. And you would convert everything, put it into here. You put your excess items into here. Oh, we actually do have shovels. Oh, that's nice. So you put excess items, and you'd finish up, and then when you're ready, you could just leave. So yep, that's the gold farm exiting now. So if we take this little road through the snow biome, this was actually a pathway. Before the netherwort farm, you'd run from the storage room, and there was this diagonal path I always took, and it ran right through this little area. And I use a step module, so I can go up 2 blocks without jumping, or 1 block without jumping. And yeah, just like that. But for some reason, I always got like glitched back trying to go up this little section here. So this road is always a little reminder of that. Just a little story I always thought was kind of nice. So coming back through here, we have the NBNT logo, and I'm going to show you these because you just saw them. So these are the rainbow chickens, and this was actually inspired from a player named iBicky, who built them at one of his bases. I actually put a sign here. Yep. So he was the one that made the edit for the base, so I always assumed he made these, but I'm unsure. But he's the only one I knew was at the current base he was touring, so I'm going to give credit to him for these. So yeah, it's just a bunch of rainbow chickens, and I always thought that was really interesting. So yeah, a bunch of rainbow chickens. Over here we have Mob Farm C and Mycelium versus Grass. So I'm going to just load in this area here. So I'm going to start with the outside here. So right here, if you remember at Inertia, I had this dirt pad and I put grass on one side and mycelium on the other, and I had that same idea here. So I filled this whole area with dirt, I put grass all the way on this end, and I put mycelium all the way on this end. And I let it grow, fill out the dirt here, so this side became mycelium. And mycelium actually took over right over to about here. And yeah, so mycelium grows much faster than grass, as I found out. And I just grew some trees, some mushrooms on top, so you can kind of get an idea of where the boundaries are. And in the middle here, this is the 3rd mob farm at the base. So the owner's chunk freezing plugin was making mob farm B not even work anymore, and I was figuring, oh, it's the redstone, so I'm going to try to make the most bland mob farm you can make, and I won't try to kill the mobs right away. I'll let them just walk off, since that's kind of what I'm being limited to. And when I made this, the server had a big problem where mobs weren't even spawning anymore. Like, I couldn't find a creeper or a skeleton or a zombie anywhere on the server anymore. So I AFK'd this farm for weeks, and nothing would even spawn on any of these layers. I tried AFKing down here, very much higher in the sky. I practiced on single player, and it was spawning mobs right away, so it was definitely a server issue. But yeah, even when I had this, when the TPS was low, all the mobs would just freeze, so I kind of gave up on that until Mob Farm B would decide to start working again. So yep, that's Mob Farm C. They would fall down here, they'd die to fall damage. Any items that landed here would slide on the ice into the hoppers. All the hoppers would come to these chests. And I can't remember what's actually in here. Oh yeah, so this is all the drops I ever got from AFKing for many weeks. So yeah. That's Mob Farm C. And heading over here, we have a rainbow beacon path. And I always liked this, because whenever I had to quickly run this way with timer and ice speed, it was a quick rainbow flash to your left, and I always liked that. And right here, we have a Stegosaurus. So this was originally going to be built at Anarchia, but I lost total motivation because we were nearing the very end of the base, and I was ready to just close it up and present it. So I never actually built the Stegosaurus there, and I had the scam available, so I decided to build it here. And it fits really well in this area. Alright, over here, we have the cocoa bean farm. So yep, pretty simple, just a bunch of jungle logs, a bunch of cocoa beans, and yeah. I get asked about this farm why I don't make it automatic too, and it's because if you use pistons, you won't get as many drops as using fortune on the cocoa beans, so yeah, I find it much more efficient to just use fortune instead of pistons. Coming over here, we have a fairly large build, so I'm just going to load it in right now. Alright, so here we are. This is the tree farm, and this took up a lot more space than I thought it would originally. So you have all your different tree types. You have 3 different rows for every tree. Well, except for the double trees here. They all have, well, for the dark oak they have 2 rows, and for the tall trees they have 1 row. You also have this long row of birch trees. If you ever needed a lot of wood quickly, for like chests or something, you would just quickly mine through this with a timer, and then yeah, you would get a bunch of wood really fast. So yep, you got all these little slabs on top to stop them from becoming large trees. You also got these walkways up here if you ever had to jump on top of the tree. So yeah, you'd be over here, you could jump on top. Over here you could jump on top. And over here, whenever there was a large tree, you could jump over on top of the tree. And I always found that was really needed to be able to jump on top of a tree. Because if you're at the bottom and you break all of these blocks, you have to get on top or build up. So you climb the ladder, jump on top, and then break all the blocks through the roof of the tree. So yeah, that's the tree farm. And pretty simple. You're just growing trees, that's pretty much it. Heading over here, I'll show that off in a minute. We have 2 things here. So I'll show off the bottom. So right here is the mycelium or grass converter pad. So how you would use this is you'd fill it with regular dirt and then run throughout it. You'd fill it with mycelium or grass, whichever you needed a large quantity of. Usually that was mycelium. And you'd AFK overnight or for like 2 hours, and then all of the dirt would become mycelium, and then you just run through it with your shovel and you've got a bunch of mycelium now. On top of it, we just have this pretty big cloud. It looks pretty small compared to this huge mycelium pad. We got this cloud right here. Nothing too special, it was just an idea we had. So yeah, got a cloud. Over here, I'm going to show you this. So we have this little parkour thing that takes you all the way to the end of this road. Well, not all the way to the end, this is one of the longest roads in the base, just to right here. So yeah, a little bit of parkour. You're ever bored, just want to test yourself, see if you can still parkour well, there you go. I'll do this one first. So, this is the horse area. So I believe it was Yellowstone Joe on 2B2T. He had this horse system set up at a base called Radioz, and I never really knew anything about horses, and I never really tried to learn. I thought it was just going to be such a big learning curve, but when I finally put myself to it and started figuring out what to do, I realized it's just horses' health, horses' jump, and horses' speed. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I got all the maximum height, minimum height, stuff like that. Actually, I don't know if that's minimum height, but that's 2 blocks. If they can't make that jump, I just throw the horse away. But yeah. We got some pretty crazy horses here, so I think this was my best one. I forget how high this one could jump. So I had all these phrases here. So I had 5 and 2S. So yeah, right over here. So 5 would be how many total blocks, and then 2S would be how many snow layers, so 2 snow layers. So yeah, it could clear that jump pretty easily. The max is right there, so I almost had a max jumping horse. And then on Future, it's a client, the one I'm using right now. It has a player speed recorder, so if you look at it, you can see how fast you're moving, and that's how I calculated how fast the horses were moving. And this was my fastest horse out of all of them, and the highest jumping horse. So yeah, I'm gonna put him right back there. This is where you would test horses' speed, so if a horse couldn't jump but they were fast, they would go here. If a horse wasn't fast but they could jump, they would go in here. And any trashy horses, like less than 2 block height, they would go in here. So yep, I tested all kinds of horses, skeleton horses, regular horses. This is where you would breed. Oh, actually I had 2 in here. I don't know where the other one went. Oh, that's weird. Okay. So yep, that's the horse area, and I'm going to come over to this one since we've seen everything around it. This is the cactus farm. So if you've seen the roads around the base, hold on, I'm just going to load this in. Alright, so if you have seen the roads around the base, you would have seen this, what almost looks like gray clay, but it's actually cyan terracotta. So yeah, terracotta is just clay, but yeah, it's cyan clay, and to make cyan you actually need green dye and lapis lazuli. So the only way to get green dye is to smelt cactus, and we only ever had a small cactus farm, so when I built this I could easily get rid of that one because this thing was producing cactus so fast. Like, I couldn't use all the cactus in here. Like, from one night's AFK, I think it filled like half this thing, and I never came back. So yeah, that's the cactus farm. Really overdone. Like, all the string in this thing, way too much. Like, oh, I can't really show you. So yeah, all the sand being held up here is by string. There's a cactus and a sand. So I think it was like 20,000 of each. So you needed 20,000 strings. So I had to actually make a cave spider farm down here. And I think it was dual cave spiders spawner. Yeah, okay, so there's one here. And they all lined up right here, and there's another one over here. So yeah, I'll tell you that farming cave spiders is not fun. They are super tricky to farm. Like, they climb walls, you can't move them with water because they just go up into the roof here. You can't, like, lower them anywhere. Trying to move them up water streams is a task. So yeah, farming spiders is not my favorite thing to do. So yeah, after I got this little system working though, it was working fairly well to where I could get enough string to actually put this thing together. And yeah, so that's the cactus farm. Right here we have the carpet and wool duper. So, oh, I think I already loaded it all in. So yep, there's many layers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers, and yep. So there's four colors per layer. Got all those. This is the general design. You flick this lever, it'll start moving these back and forth really quickly. The original idea was to have 2 to get a lot of wool really quickly, but I didn't have enough slime blocks to do that, so just 1 would do. So yep, they're all the same, but right when you get to the top here, this is where you get the rails. You have to switch it up a bit because you can't stack rails like the original design. So yep, just like the carpet, I only had enough slime blocks for the bottom layer, but this worked really well. Whenever you needed carpet or rails, you could be here for like 5 minutes, you would have enough for like 2 months. It was super quick. So yeah. You can also jump from the very top into the water here, just some quick travel, and yeah, that's the carpet duper and rail duper. So, behind this is the furnace, so you've seen everything in that general area now. So, heading over here. Alright, now we're coming up on a dragon here, and if you have a really good eye, you would know where this is from. It is from a base on 2b2t called Imps, one of the largest bases on the server actually. So when looking through Imps, I wanted to bring at least one build from there into NBNT, and this dragon really stood out to me. So originally it was made out of redstone, but I just made it into stone because I thought it looked a little bit better like that, and I actually had the supplies. So yeah, there's the dragon. Here's the American flag I was talking about earlier. And yep, we will head over here. We got a giant pumpkin to celebrate Halloween. And if you remember from Anarchia, we had the similar design, except it was 1/16 the size, I think, or 1/8 the size. I can't remember. But yeah, pretty cool. Just a bunch of pumpkins facing the other way. So yep, that's the giant pumpkin. Heading over here, This is also from Anarchia. Well, it's originally from Shipwreck. I got that wrong in the Anarchia video. It's from a base called Shipwreck, and it's called Ab's Wooden Tower. It has had many different designs in the past. I rebuilt it at NBNT because I thought it deserved a place here. So yeah, that's Ab's Wooden Tower. If you watch the Anarchia full tour, I go into a lot of detail about it there. Right here we have an automatic melon and automatic pumpkin farm. So if you didn't want to go to the bulk farms over there and use an axe, you could just AFK here. I think I took all the pumpkins. Yeah. Well, there's melons here. So yeah, you just AFK here overnight. You have like a bunch of chests of melons. These things would just go back and forth. Right here, yep. So, pretty simple design. I actually got it from, I can't remember which YouTuber, but yeah, it's just pistons pushing trapdoors onto the plants, and they break, and then the minecart goes around, collects them, puts them in the hopper, and yeah. Heading this way. Actually, I think we have to go back here. Actually, I'll go there after. So that's the meeting area right here. I'll look up first. Trying to load it all in. We have a giant melon ball. So at Athens, this was a project. This was the last project at Athens, and the base got griefed before I could finish it. And it was actually a lot smaller scale, but it was just a melon ball at Athens, and I never got to actually complete it, so I brought it to NBNT, and yeah, just a little build. Underneath it, we have a sheep farm. This is one of the 2 sheep farms. This one, if you just wanted to quickly pick up some wool with shears instead of going to the whole automatic farm, you come here, shear, put extra wool in there that you didn't need. Underneath each glass block there is grass, so if all the grass got eaten here by the sheep, grass would slowly start coming out from around here, and yeah, that is the sheep farm. Heading this way, oh yeah, we will get to those pyramids in a bit. That's a whole different area on its own. Alright, we'll come over here. Now, this farm, I never really liked, but it does work in theory. This is the automatic cooked chicken farm. So yeah, chickens would lay eggs in these hoppers. The hoppers would automatically would shoot eggs onto the slabs. The baby chicken came from the egg, then the baby chicken would be here, and until it was fully grown, it wouldn't be touching the lava, but when it did, it would be big enough to hit the lava. Its drop would go in here, and the drops would get put into the chest here. So the reason I didn't like this farm is each of the dispensers weren't reliant on if an egg was just hatched, it was reliant on this timer here. And this would just go back and forth, spamming each dispenser. And it usually broke most of the time. Like, I think it just broke right now. So this is what I mean by the chunk freezing problem. So yeah. This just gets activated, and like whatever you do, it's going to be like that until the server TPS gets better. So yeah, that's the cooked chicken farm. Also, if you've noticed, there's this ongoing theme with the foundations here. So at Anarchia, it was the first time I started using foundations for builds. Usually I would just flatten out an area in the grass, like most people, and then build up the structure from there. I thought maybe it's time I should start like building an actual structure underneath and then putting the actual build on top. And then that became a lot more easier than flattening out a bunch of grass like for every build. So at Anarchia, it was kind of just scattered random designs for foundations all around the base. But for this base, I tried to keep it simple and use this kind of similar design with the road, with the clay. And all the foundations should be the same here, unlike Anarchia. So yeah. Heading over here. This is a fairly large project. I'm just going to load it all in again. Alright. So, here we have three separate things. We have a charged creeper platform. We have a creeper only mob farm, so only creepers will spawn in here. And we have a music disc farm down here. So you could put a skeleton in here. I couldn't get a skeleton at the time because in the past no mobs were spawning at all, like I said. And so if you had a skeleton here, it would shoot the creeper if you were standing right here, and then music disc would get put into these chests here. So from here, this is the creeper only farm. If a creeper spawned, they'd get automatically pushed into the water. They'd flow into this system here, into this little collection area, and then you could break this wall here. And because there's no easy way to move creepers, you would just have to have them follow you into one of these holding cells here. And then overnight, you could just AFK in the center, and then if a lightning storm were to happen, there's a chance that one of the creepers will get struck, and then if they became a charged creeper, they would fall. You could break this block, they'd fall into the water stream. They would go all the way over here into this collection system, and then you could put them in this little hole here, put a block on top of them, and then you could get another mob, put it in here, have them go over here. And if you don't know, if you have a mob die to a charged creeper, the head of the mob actually drops. So yeah, the creeper will blow up here, it won't break any blocks because it's in water, but it will kill the mob, and then you get a mob head. I could never do that here because, as the before mentioned, chunk freezing problem. So yeah, in theory this farm works. It would work in single player, but on NBNT it's kind of pointless. So yeah, I'm going to go back over here. Now this is the GH3. Now if you remember from Anarchia, we had the GH2. Also, I mentioned Anarchia a lot because Anarchia was basically the rough draft for this base. It helped me learn a lot of the farms and stuff I had to do, and when I came to this base, I had a lot of prior knowledge of what to do, and a lot of it was really already perfected, so a lot of the stuff you see here is very similar to Anarchia. So this was a very big project, and I'm really sad to say it never got finished. And I think this was the only project that didn't get finished at NBNT. There was just too many blocks to mine. So yeah, if I can load it all in here. So, it is a 10 by 10 chunk hole. Cloven and I started this the day of that we came here. So we started flattening out an area just to start collecting blocks. This was a temporary storage. You could put your shulkers here, pick it up, and bring it to the storage room. These were just some, I don't know how that happened. These were some pickaxe shulkers. And yeah, like I said, we kept running out of pickaxes. Like, you would go through one layer and you would use, I don't know, like 9 pickaxes, 10, 12 pickaxes. And whenever you had to go fix the pickaxes, the server chunk freezing problem would always freeze the mobs. So trying to fix pickaxes and then go dig the hole for materials you didn't even need anymore was kind of pointless. So yeah. We got this far, and I decided it was time to just call it quits, and that's how far the GH3 got. So yeah. There was also haste beacons all around, you can tell by the gold on the beacons. So yep, that's the GH3. And heading out, we will go back this way. So that was the charged creeper area, and that was the cooked chicken area. On our left here we have the automatic sugarcane farm. So this thing is actually really efficient. Whenever a sugarcane would grow up to this height, 3 high, a piston would push it, break the middle block, the top 2 would break, and a minecart underneath would eventually, if I can find it. Oh man, I think the minecart disappear. Oh, actually, it's probably not loaded in. Hold on. Oh yeah, so there it is. It would go around picking up all the sugarcane on the ground right here, and then once it got here, it would put the sugarcane in the hoppers. Hoppers would bring it down here into the collection area, and yeah, you could get a bunch of sugarcane. So this thing actually worked really well. You could AFK in here, and yeah, we didn't use sugarcane a lot, but if we needed it, it was there. So this area should look familiar. That's the mushroom log farm there, and if you remember, the mini mushroom farm is over there. So I'm going to head this way. So heading this way, it was actually a pretty wacky project. So yeah. I had this idea for a spikes biome, and I've never actually used, like, we had a bunch of cobblestone at the base, but I didn't have any plans for it, and I didn't know what to use cobblestone for, so I thought, alright, let's make a weird spikes biome where it's just a bunch of spikes. And if you look on the render, you can actually see it was a really good space filler for a bad terrain type of area. I can actually show you here. So yeah, it was a bunch of mountains and snow and like this really low valley area in between everything. So it wasn't like a good place to put a good farm build or decorative build. So yeah, this actually fit really well in between here and with what's over there and the GH over there. You can actually see the ice road over there. So yep, that's the spikes biome. And heading back. This thing is actually a lot bigger, but like because of the render distance, I can only see so far. But yep. So yeah, you can see way over there because the chunks are saving. So with the render distance, if I ran into a chunk, that chunk will still be viewable from a really far distance. Alright, now running down this road, we have a build I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. It's the speech area. So, if you were running low on motivation and you needed a speech from the other basemate, sit in the crowd and then they would just try to tell you why you're still building up this base and why we should keep going. And then you could also just take a quick break, you know, talk, see what's going on with the other person. It was always nice. That's the vine farm. And right here, you've probably seen this structure 1,000 times if you play Anarchy. This is just a Valkyrie, and I think it's 4, 5, 6, yeah, it's 8:1 scale. So yeah, every block is 8 times bigger. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Well, like it's, I don't know. You can see for yourself that it's much bigger than a regular Valkyrie. Right here, we have Princess Consuela. So, at my second base on the server, Wither Islands, this was a chicken on the island, and I named it Princess Consuela from a joke on the TV show Friends. Yes, I watch Friends. And yeah, it's just a big chicken. I also sometimes call this a statue of Discover because his character is a chicken. Alright, now coming back here. Actually, I think I'll go this way because there's only one build in this direction. Now, if you're fairly new to the server, you're probably going to recognize this build because it was built by a newer group on the server. And it's going to take a while to load in, so give me a second. Alright, now I have it all loaded in. So, this is a recreation of a build at a base called Soup Base 2. So, on NBNT, there was this base called Soup Base, or I think Soup Base 2, and this mega build at the base, it was never completed there, and it was actually a different colored glass. It was never finished, it never actually had a roof, it was cut off to about there, and it had so much potential, but it was really, really unfinished. Like, it only had half of these, I think. So, like, the other 3 weren't even there. And a bunch of the ground was exploded, so I took a world download and I recreated it. I tried to line up everything, a bunch of these weren't lined up, so I took a corner and I copied it around. I did a bunch of changes with this. So, as an ode to Soup Base, this is the build. So yeah. It also has a beacon at the top here, and there's nothing inside. It's more of a decorative build. So yeah. So heading out. So yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, it also has some attachments on the bottom, but that's nothing too special. Heading over here, I'll actually show you this one first before I show you those pumpkins. So yep, I just loaded it in. This is the Grief Sculpture. So it's a cobble monster, and you make one of these by putting lava on top, or water on top of lava, and continuously doing that over and over until you get this really large structure. So the way I stopped it was I put a water wall here, and whenever the lava hit the water wall, it would stop the lava. Whenever water would go on top, it would just get stopped at the water wall. So after I was done this, I took away the water wall, and we have this nice cube of just grief. So yeah, if I go inside, you can see it's all cobblestone and stone. So yeah. Before that, I had a test run, but I didn't like how there was no foundation here. So yeah, I covered up this one and I put a new one on top. So yeah, I've never seen this at a different base, a grief sculpture. So yeah, I really like this build. And now I can show off the pumpkins here. Just going to load them in. So at Anarchia, we had a 1.12.2 pumpkin patch. That's basically just a bunch of pumpkins with the faces still on them. So if you don't know, in 1.13, the pumpkins lose their face. The server is still on 1.2, or 1.12.2. So if the server were to update and you were looking around, you would see this pumpkin patch, but all the pumpkins would still have their faces on it and the stems wouldn't be connected. So you would know this base was built in 1.12.2, kind of a signature to that version of the game. So yeah, it was also a really nice space filler for this area. And right here, I'll show this off right next. We have a giant ice cube. So yeah, oh, I didn't really load that part in, but yeah, you get the idea. It's just, I think that's 60,000 packed ice or something, I don't know. No, there's no way it's 60,000, probably like 30,000 packed ice, but yeah, just a bunch of ice packed into a cube. It was an idea by Cloven because we were starting to run out of ideas of what to build here. Oh, I actually forgot to show something in the center. So we have two airplanes. This one is titled A2 for Airplane 2, and this is the smaller of the two. So yeah, just a little airplane floating up out here. Let me run back to the center before I show this off. So yeah, right back at the center here, we have A1 or Airplane 1, and obviously the bigger of the two. And yep. I always thought it looked nice, and yeah. Nice to have an airplane at the base. And if we go over here, I forgot to show off something else. Right above the corner of the tree farm, we have this little jet. So yeah, two airplanes and a jet at the base. So yep, this is where we just left off. Right here, we have the dye factory. So it basically tells you the best method really to get how to get each dye. So yeah, you got red, you got all the colors basically. So yeah, if you could get it here, like if you needed just a few brown dye, you could just mine some cocoa beans I put here. And also you have all the flowers right there. If you could mix two dyes together, I'd put one here. So if you needed red, you could just get red right here because that was the fastest way. And yeah, that's the dye factory. Over here we have the animal farm. Or farms. So yeah, this should be every animal in the game besides like cats and dogs and stuff, and like pets that like teleport to you, so any of those aren't here. So you have like your chickens, your sheep, your pigs, mushrooms, cows, these are mules, donkeys, horses, llamas, and rabbits. So yeah, you got all your animals here. And right over here, a lot of people don't know what this is when they first see it. You would put your ores down from mining, so if you had a bunch of coal ore, you could just quickly spam it all around, and then you would use your Fortune 3, and then you get a bunch of supplies from that ore, pretty much. So yeah, that's basically what this is. So we've covered a majority of the base. I'd say we're about 50 to 60% through. My voice is starting to go as well. Alright, I'm just heading back to the Stegosaurus here and the intersection between the cocoa beans and the tree farm. So we went down that road, and that road. We never took this one. So heading this way, I guess I'll close off this side of the base. We have a sheep farm. This is the automatic sheep farm. If you recognize the design, then you'll know that this is from Anarchia. And I was actually really impressed with the one at Anarchia that I actually just took the entire design over to NBNT. So yeah, I sheared some of the sheep, so these are still kind of regrowing. But yep, it's pretty simple. You could get in the minecart here, you'll go up, and you'll be put at the right speed, where if you have the right settings, you'll be able to shear all the sheep. Oh yeah, some sheep are black because I had to get a lot of black wool, so that's why. And yep, you would just go around and around until you reach the end over here. You would go down, your minecart would stop, you could break it, put it back here. And all the wool will get picked up from underneath the sheep here on this rail, which you could turn on with this lever here. So yeah, the minecarts would go back and forth, pick up all the wool, put it in these hoppers. Hoppers would put it in these chests, and then you could take all the wool out of the chest, put it into the chest here, or you could take it to the actual storage room back over there. All this wheat, of course, is just to breed the sheep at the time, and this was actually a really hard thing to make because of the chunk freezing problem. All the sheep would stop moving a lot of the time, so I had to make this when the server wasn't as at a peak, so I was mostly on at like 4 or 5 a.m. making this thing when there was only like 50 people online, and even then it was still a challenge to make. So yeah, that's the sheep farm. Heading this way, if you looked at the render, this really sticks out. So I'm just going to load it all in. So yep, I just loaded it all in. So normally you climb this ladder, I'm just going to go on free cam because it's faster. This is the 10 rows triangle. If you don't know what that is, it's just an optical illusion, and it's really hard to recreate in Minecraft, so it doesn't really have the same effect, but you kind of get the idea of what it's going for. And some lightning has struck it from AFKing the sheep farm, as you can see. So yeah, this was about 100,000 netherrack. This is why I showed you the quarry. This is where all the netherrack went. I would just like to say that at the space, we never used any auto building client. We were always here for every block that was placed. There was no automatic placing going on here, which I've seen happen at some other places. So yeah. I will go left first, heading down this road, right here. So yeah, you can kind of already see what is going on. We got some signs here. Who would have thought the unplanned bested the planned? And then an old idea. So when we first started here, the original plan was, okay, we gotta fill in this huge area with builds, so we're just gonna stretch everything out as wide as we can. But from here, it's like 700 blocks to the storage room, so that became really difficult to do. With every build, you couldn't be running back and forth, like 700 blocks every time if you forgot one thing and had to run 700 blocks. And at the time, we didn't even have these roads or the supplies to build the roads. So yeah, it was not a good idea. So yeah. So what we changed was we won't use this super wide, outstretched plan. We'll just build stuff around the storage room, and as space gets filled up, we'll go farther and farther and farther and farther. And we actually got all the way out to here. So yeah. This was the original sugarcane farm. So you can see this is kind of the same idea for the one right next to the storage room. Yep. Right now it is just dirt. We never put sugarcane or actually finished the dirt because we kept running out. We didn't have a gold farm to fix the shovels yet. So yeah, that's how far we got with that. So yeah. Heading back. So that's the farthest point of the base in that direction. And if we head this way, we have a random pillar. So there was a trend on the server I think it was 2 weeks ago, where people were posting on the subreddit just random pillars across the server. And I thought to give an ode to that, I'd just make a really big pillar out of cobblestone, since we had a lot of that here. And I was at a push and pull because I wanted to make some big circle, some big monument to it, but the idea is that it's supposed to be random, so I kind of just put it there and tried to just leave it, as to not give it any meaning because it's supposed to be random. So yeah, that's the random pillar, and that's how far this corner of the base kind of stretches out. So I'll head back to over here actually. Okay. So yeah, the road breaks off this way. We go underneath the ground a bit here, and as you see, that's the gold farm. We're just passing it. Nope, we're still right there, trying to give you an idea of where we are. And I'll go there right after. Right here we have the automatic carrot, potato, beetroot, and wheat farm. So yeah, we got villagers in here. They'll harvest the crops, they'll plant the seeds, and then the minecart underneath will pick it up. So with wheat and beetroot, it's really easy to make an automatic farm like this. For carrots and potatoes, you have to have another villager right here for the villager to throw the crops at. So they'll stand here, they'll try to throw it to this villager, it'll fall in the hoppers, and then I don't see the minecart. Oh, it's not loaded in. It'll come by here eventually, take items from this chest, and put it into these chests down here. So yeah, if there were any excess items just laying around, the hopper minecart would also pick it up. So yeah, that's why it goes all the way around. Oh, there it is. So yeah, villagers came from the villager farm, which is right there. Yep. Heading back, I'll show you this build. So yeah, there's the villager farm. So yeah, I'm just standing in the middle of it right now. This is the lava lake. So yeah, it's kind of just thrown about here, but yeah, it took many hours to collect and place lava all around here. So this was the last thing built about everything around here, and it was a really hard area to kind of work with because it was mountainy here and right in the middle here. We also had this huge build right over here, the villager farm there, or villager farm here, villagers were working here, and the rails over top. So we couldn't really put anything tall if it were to hit here, and then this weird bump in the middle was always hard to work with. So I got the idea for a lava lake, and I just spam lava buckets all around. So yeah, it does look cool on the render, it gives it some light, so yeah. Also, I want to point out that a lot of the builds at this base were made for the render. That was the whole idea for a lot of it. We wanted to make the render look as good as possible. So yeah, even if it doesn't make sense in person from the render, it all adds up to the cumulative. So yeah. So I will get over there in a second. I'm just going to show off this side of the base, close it off here. So right there, that's the Skyway, if you didn't know. Right here we have the barcode wheat farm. So someone else had a design like this at their base, and that's what they actually called it. And I always thought it was kind of cool, because I kept running out of wheat, and I thought, hey, that's kind of cool to just have a lot of wheat in one area. and I rebuilt it here fast, and it took up a good spot in this swamp biome actually, because working in a swamp is always terrible. So yeah, little barcode wheat farm, even though it's not a barcode, but yeah, that's just what it's called. Right here we have the, if I can load it all in. Alright, there we go. We have the Minecraft logo. So yeah, it's kind of hard to load in, but you get the idea. Yep, right there. Minecraft logo. Pretty cool. And right here we have a vine wall. So these go all the way to sky limit. And because this road is super long, by the way, it takes you to a build way out there. Just as you're running there, you see the giant Minecraft logo and you see the giant vine wall. So yeah. Heading over here, we're also going to see one build on the edge here. So yeah. Alright, so this is number 8. So there are 8 total outposts at this base. So from the storage room, from the waypoint, every diagonal direction 1,000 blocks, and every cardinal direction 1,000 blocks, there is an outpost. So straight this way from the storage room, it's a little bit to the edge, but it doesn't matter. 1,000 blocks, you get an outpost. So if you went about, I think it would be 500 blocks that way, or